There is a rickety ship inside the Immigration Museum on which hundreds of people sailed. I wonder how they felt. What was it like all those years ago? My life as an Australian began only 3 years ago. I remember the first week that I was here. I was walking along these streets. I felt quite odd, like an imposter. I had a resident visa, but I knew I didn't belong. Have you made any Australian friends? Someone asked me recently. Yep, Italian, Chinese, Australian. I made all kinds of friends. But I'm still confused. I don't know where I belong. All I know is I can never call myself an Australian. I'm an Indian.
Always miss New Zealand. I miss the landscape probably most of all. And I love Australia too, and I love the guns, but when you look at New Zealand, it's very different. It's mountains, it's lakes, it's a different vegetation, a lot of different colours. I think it is easier, it's easier because the language does make it easier. But when you come from another country and you make your life, in a new place, there's a whole lot of your life that you can never talk about. When I'm with a group of Australians, they'll say, oh, remember when that used to be? What school did you go to? Or I saw so-and-so the other day. So that never happens for any migrant. They can't talk about their childhood. They can't recall or remember with others because we don't have a shared history. And I noticed that. So you just sit there while they say, oh, that shop's moved there, or remember that school, or da-da-da. And you think, well, what can you say? So I think that's always there too.
What I miss the most is the festivals. Diwali is just not the same here. The excitement, the joy, the preparation. I used to love wearing a new sari each year and visiting my neighbors with a plate of sweets. Rows upon rows of diyas. The whole city lit up. But the best part was playing with the firecrackers. But now I'm in a new country, starting anew. Yet I miss my collection of books, my beloved cats, my best friend who stood the test of times, and bad times at that. The smell of earth after the first monsoon rain. A koel singing in the mangroves. But I didn't belong completely in India either. I was a misfit. Broken family, too westernized. You name it, we had it all wrong. Maybe I'm never meant to belong in any one place.
And certainly, I think it's true, I fit in. And I look like everyone else, just in the general thing. I think, people think, she's Australian. But I would say that whenever I meet anyone in a new group, somebody will say to me, oh, you're a New Zealander, aren't you? So you're always identified. I can tell by your accent. And they'll always make a joke. They'll say fish and chips and ha ha ha. And then the other thing they'll say is, say sex. They want you desperately to say sex. So then they laugh and laugh and laugh because I think we sound like six or something. It's in the back of the throat. So we always, I would say, dozens and dozens of times I would be asked that. Say sex, go on. Oh, like that. So you're identified by other people too.
Gordy! Oh, not doing that no more.
Grazie tanto.
I can only use my name as who I am. I am Jessica Carniel, that's who I am. I can break that down further and say, well, my parents are Italian migrants, but I've grown up in Australia. You can't articulate yourself in one sentence. It's absolutely impossible. When I say Italian Australian, that's not the one thing that is me. A lot of the time I don't even put the Italian there, I'm just Australian. But a lot of the time I need the Italian there to explain why I eat a funny kind of fruitcake at Christmas, or, you know, why I call my uncles and aunts by a different name, or just to explain some of the things that I don't know where I've gotten them from, but I can only explain them through that background. But there are other things, such as, Lord, I don't know. It's definitely multiple, because everything that you do in your life becomes part of your identity. So you can't just nail it down to the one thing, or even nail it down to the two things.
The essence of me is Indian. But what does it mean to be an Indian? What is the national character or caricature? What part of Indianness should I own up to? And what about those other parts of me that make up the whole of me?
I'm still a New Zealander. I haven't become Australian. But we had when my children become 20, they had a possibility of being New Zealanders, and they just, because one was born here, one in Hong Kong, they just chose Australia. And my husband, who was born in Canada, became Australian. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't give away my New Zealand citizenship. So that is who I am, and my New Zealand passport.
When people see me, all they see is my cultural identity, a stereotype that they may have created. Yet there are so many aspects to me. There are so many Neelimas that make up the whole of me. I'm Indian, but I'm my kind of Indian.
I think it comes down to that point of what is Australian. And for me, I don't think it is one culture. I don't think it's the idea of multiculturalism that they would want it to be. But at the same time, living in Australia has given me the opportunity of experiencing lots of different kind of things that have shaped who I am and continue to shape who I am and who I'm going to become. Definitely the Italian part of it plays a bigger role because that's where I've come from already. But definitely that Australian part is made up of so many different things that I can't even begin to isolate them. So there is no one culture, that's for sure. And I don't know, I'd hate to think that one day we'd get to that point.
You know, this is sort of a political thing, but the interesting thing about America is that when you go to America, which is a land of migrants, and absolutely, and you have to become American, I mean, that's the thing they say. Well, Australia, you don't have to do that. They've had this multicultural sort of ideal, which is very different. So I don't know whether if there was more pressure from the society whether I would say, okay, yes, I am Australian, yes. I'll never say I'm Australian. That's true, I'll never say that. I'll say I have lived in Australia for many years, but I'm a New Zealander.
It's this thing, like, when you look at different theories of multiculturalism, and you look at the American one, and they don't actually have real multiculturalism, not that we do either, but they call it the melting pot ideology, where everyone gets thrown in, they mix it around, and then you come out with the American. And what the American is, I've got no idea, but they try and blend it and homogenize it and, you know, make it into something else. Nobody can be the one thing. Like, why would you want to be just one thing? One identity, one culture. It's just, I don't like that idea. I like the idea of, you know, talking to my friends and finding out that everyone's got something a bit different in their lives.
All my life I have known that all these are the different faces of one. Perhaps people are like that too. Maybe I am what they call a transnational. Maybe it takes more than one place to make me understand who I am. More than one place to identify with. More than one place to call home.
da 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 da